Hello, and welcome to the UnToxic Boss podcast, where leadership meets empathy and productivity meets compassion. I am your host, Jeannine K. Brown, and each week we will dive into the world of effective leadership without toxicity. I'm here to help equip you with the tools, insights, and stories to transform your leadership style, foster a healthy work environment, and create a space where everyone feels valued and heard. So grab your notebook, get comfortable, and learn to stop being a jerk at work. Welcome to the UnToxic Boss. Today's episode is titled The Uneven Scales of Work-Life Balance. We promise to be on this journey into the heart of achieving true work-life balance, or maybe we have another word for it. I think we're going to end today's conversation giving you some new language around how to manage both work and life and have a strong integration of the two where one doesn't outweigh the other. We're going to be dissecting this myth of exploring the reality and providing you with actionable strategies to create a life of balance and fulfillment with our esteemed guest, Marcus Wilson. He is a multi-family, works with technologies. He's a visionary and founder behind a tool that we're going to talk about today. He's a friend, someone who I highly respect. And we had a 2-hour conversation that I thought was going to be a 15-minute conversation about a month ago. Our conversation, Marcus, a few months ago was, just eye-opening. One, it was great to reconnect, really enlightening to hear your story since you left Atlanta.
Yes.
And so I just think that today's topic is going to be really helpful for people. So Marcus, please introduce yourself and tell our guests a little bit about you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jeannine, for having me on your show. I really am so happy and thrilled to be here and just to be able to have the opportunity to share my life, my experiences with the world, your world, I would say. This is going to be an exciting topic and one that's dear and true to me. So Marcus Wilson, born and raised in Columbus, Georgia. Can you believe that? An hour and a half south of Atlanta. Grew up playing sports. 706 is the area code, repping 706. Whatever. So,
yesterday in Atlanta was 404 day.
Well, that would make sense. I've started to see a lot of the 404 and 405 or something like that. I saw somebody post one of those. But anyway, yeah, so that makes sense now or whatever. Yeah, I 706 Columbus, right? About an hour, 15 minutes south of Atlanta. Grew up there and went to University of West Georgia, where I graduated with a CIS degree. I have been in computers technology ever since the Commodore 64. And I'm dating myself, so please don't look that up. But that was my first computer. And the thing about it is that it was a big strain to get that first computer for my mom and dad. It was the only thing that I got for that Christmas. And just to think that became my life, what I majored in and whatever. But I remember my aunt, because they knew it was a big strain on them. But I remember my aunt asking me, so Marcus, why do you feel that you need a computer? And I was like, well, I feel that one day, this is 7th grade, I feel that one day computers are going to run the world. And since then, that was a decision I made back in 7th grade. Got that Commodore, and the rest is technology history. I've been a executive and in multifamily for about 18 years in technology there. But I've also been in the big box companies, certain companies, and have done contracts with companies like Pfizer, Home Depot, GE Capital when I was in Atlanta. Ended up moving to Florida about 12, 13 years ago, to take some executive leadership positions here, and have done some great things. And on that trip, I decided that I wanted to pivot, as they say, because I felt that there was something that needed to be said, that I needed to say, in a message that I needed to get out there that was within me, and just wasn't sure of how to get that out. And that's where I am today. That's where we're here today, because that's why I developed my compelling message of harmonize the mix. Orchestrate the balance between people, process, and technology.
So repeat that again. So it's harmonize the mix.
Yes, harmonize. My compelling message is, if you want a company that embraces change, optimizes operations, and maximizes the effectiveness of technology, you must harmonize the mix. Harmonizing the mix is orchestrating the balance between people, process, and technology, much like crafting a hit song where all the components come together in perfect rhythm.
And I know how much you like music,
Yeah.
recorded and live. Our show is really focused on helping leaders lead and galvanize people and help them like really increase their capacity around their contributions in the workplace and really be able to do that in cultures that value humanity,
Hmm.
who may even, and recognize people for their purpose, their achievement, their belonging. And I even say, Marcus, I think that we need to infuse the workplace with love again.
Yeah.
We've gotten to a point where people are just so focused on what can you do for me, or as Janet Jackson said back in the 90s, what have you done for me lately? I think we are so focused on that we forget about the people. What do you think about that?
Yeah, yeah, no, you're right. It's gotten to be so transactional. Even going further, as I was just thinking about this another day when I was talking to a colleague, a friend, we were talking about getting certifications and MBAs and things of that nature. We hear a lot of people are, when they talk about getting certifications and MBAs and things of that nature, they talk about getting in order to get, meaning I get a certification so I can get more money, getting a certification or MBA so I can get better title. Whereas I remember when I went to get my PMP, I wanted to be able to give more. I wanted to get the certification and the knowledge so that I could be a better leader, give more, give better communication, give better service to my team. And that was one of the things. I'm not sure if we're even looking at obtaining knowledge in order so that we can give, and the results will come out from more money or better titles or whatever, because those are just specific measurable results. You want to be able to impact, you want to get in order to impact others. And you're right, everything's becoming so transactional now.
It does. And what you are describing sounds very much like servant leadership, right?
Mhm.
Whatever skills, whatever tools that enhance me to be a better leader, it's because I'm going to be able to impact other people in the workplace and impact our clients, our employees. So it sounds very focused on others. And I really like that. And I hope people really grasp that, because it is a different perspective on
Mhm.
how to lead in the 21st century.
Yeah, because you're right. I think we put so much into technology, and rightfully so. We have to be able to scale. We have to be able to adjust and adapt. But we have skipped over people in a sense of not necessarily investing into growth and development of the people within the
Yeah.
organization to be able to adapt to that new technology. I've seen that a lot, especially in the industry that I'm in. So that's one of the things that I talk about when I talk about harmonizing the mix. That's part of it. It's part of that people area where you're talking about creating that winning environment.
So speaking of winning environments, I think from the outside looking in, a lot of people find the technology industry to be very mysterious, maybe
Mm-hmm.
a little sexy. I think they assume everybody is just highly contributing. Technology is leading the way. Innovation leads the way. Compensation, you guys are drawing in on big dollars. I remember
No doubt.
before Y2K,
Yeah.
like people were jumping into technology because they could go from school or go from
Oh, yeah.
a certificate program, certification, and boom, they were making $125,000 a year or more.
Yep.
But I think the untold things that I've learned about the technology industry, and this is not to throw your industry under the bus, but y'all have some issues, some toxic issues in leadership and training leaders and those sort of impact. Can you share with our audience? Because I want them to really connect with you and understand that you didn't just wake up and say, I'm creating this methodology. It came out of something. Tell us maybe a challenge that you had with a toxic leader in the workplace, and how did you deal with that?
One of the things I would say is that with technology, we have to, a person like, say, for instance, me, who was a leader in technology, understand it, done numerous implementations, conversions, data migrations, things of that nature. The biggest issue I see is that those leaders are not necessarily have a strategic plan, nor do they have any kind of vision or directional roadmap of where they want to go. They just want the technology and they want it in. And then there's all these questions that we have to ask when we're going through implementation. So what has happened over the time is that it's become very, how can I say it, tactical. Everything has become tactical and gotten away from strategy. And we're not aligning. There's all sorts of technology that you can leverage to get where you want to go, but it's choosing the right technology. So I would say this, the biggest thing here is having that strategy and plan, communicating that to everybody down to the people on the front lines who's going to be impacted, and then having a plan of action of how you're going to deploy, develop, and train people how to use this new technology. What I've seen and what I've witnessed is that everything is so tactical where we implement it. Nobody fully knows how to use it. Everybody is kind of resistance towards the change. And what happens is that everything is pushed down on technology or information IT or the people who are going to be over it to actually to develop, to train, to implement, to optimize, do the whole kit and caboodle when there's no ideal strategy of what are we trying to do. We're just actually gaining that new technology. As far as leadership concerned and toxic leadership, when you have that and you have no strategy, you have no vision for where you want to go, what happens is that people start to leave. People start to talk. People start to gossip. People start to wonder, well, how is this going to impact me? And when you try to bring that towards leadership, sometimes leadership can become, they don't want to hear the people problems. They just want to know, did we get it done? Is it done? Is it up and working? But they're not focusing on what's going, the implications that are happening with the people. So again, IT is sitting there trying to balance the two between making sure that people understand and trying to give them a blueprint or a vision of where this is going to put them down the road. And nothing has been communicated from leadership of where we're going, how we're going to get there, who we are, and what this technology is going to do.
Yeah, I love the fact that our show is live because I think Dominique just put something very important. And I think you've said it, but I think she's like, I'm going to throw it in your face. Certifications don't teach people how to handle real world situations.
Mm-hmm.
In order to pass down knowledge, there are other skill sets that are needed to align certain goals. And I think that's what you said, Marcus. And what ends up happening, what you described, is organized chaos. And the fruit of organized chaos in a high performing workplace is low morale. And then what we see is all those things that you listed around gossiping and fear and all of these other things. And then we start to, instead of managing and feel like when people pose questions to us, we become defensive. And then that's when the beast comes out. I think as Steve in our chat mentioned, like this, so while we're going through change, fear comes out. And then, before you know it, you got a hot head under all of this. Let's get a little bit more narrow to our topic. I want people to understand what the mixed methodology is or the mixed method is as we look at like this work-life balance, because I think part of the challenge that a lot of people have is they're trying to balance work and life. And I don't think there is a balance. I have been using terms like harmony or integration, but I want you to answer, can people really achieve this sort of harmony or work-life balance? Maybe a better question is, what is your solution with the mixed method that can really help people and help leaders help their people harmonize work and life?
So I was going to say this, can people have harmony or balance through in their work-life balance? Yes, it comes down to an understanding. Life it's just like a scale, it's just like a scale, like the justice scales that you see from the justice, from the statue of the justice system, where there's two scales. They say the scales are there to balance each other out. There's always two sides of the story that you have to listen to both. But we all know sometimes that's subjective, depending on what the issue is and who's on trial or whatnot. So that's the same in life. So what I want to say is it's not going to be a linear process. Work-life balance is not linear. It's not, if I do this, I do this, I do this. It's not a path you take. What it comes down to is balancing out all of it, from work to family and to work, family, and work and family, and your personal life. The biggest challenge I see right now is that everything is so integrated with technology, our business, our communication. Everybody is working throughout the day from morning to night. And I think that's what I fell into. I was working from morning to night to wee hours of the night. And that happened like every day, even on the weekend. And you would be getting emails and you just stayed there. You were always working and whatnot. You have to set up your boundaries. You have to have boundaries that you set up, but you also have to have understanding that sometimes there are going to be some projects that you're working on that are going to take a little bit of time. But you also have to balance that out by spending time with your family, as well as spending personal time for yourself to recoup, revamp, reload, relax, reinvent yourself. That's always, you got to take out time for that. So I would say harmonize the mix is all about orchestrating the balance between people, process, and technology. The people, creating the environment of the people in your life. That's either can be in the work life or your family. Creating that environment which requires communication, a connection to cultivate culture that embraces change and supports people through it, as well as making a commitment to the people in your life, as well as to work. But it also, from work, it provides aligning your processes, your services and delivery of your processes and products. In your personal life, it means aligning your habits in order to meet your strategic goals, and then leveraging technology in order to ramp up, to integrate all that together. And it's an integration of all three of those together. Yes, it can be balanced, but you have to understand there are going to be some times where you're going to spend a little bit more time in work than you can with your personal life. But it's going to require maybe sometimes giving up something for a few days or a few minutes less than what you normally would, but also coming back to it to regain and get back in balance.
Yeah, I love how you broke that down for us. So tell me, what is the mix method and how can it help our listeners? And, maybe even I can license this under Everyday Lead and we can use this with some of our clients. So what is it?
Okay, so the mix method, it's 3 actions that produces 3 components that impacts 3 elements. The actions
3 and 3.
3, 3, and 3. Simple as that. So you have create a winning environment, align your processes with whatever strategy or vision you have down the road, and leverage or ramp up leveraging technology. Those are the 3 actions: create, align, ramp up. Now, what it does is it's going to create 3 components. When you create a winning environment, you're going to come up with a roadmap. You're going to create a winning environment by communicating what you want. Like for a company, it's communicating where we're going, who we are, what we do, and how we're going to do it. It creates a roadmap. With that component of a roadmap, you're going to align your procedures, your processes, and things with that roadmap in order to reach your strategy and goals. That's going to simplify. That's going to create simplicity. That's that second component, simplicity and understanding. Then you're going to take the technology and you're going to ramp up. You're going to automate some of those processes, procedures in order to make it easier. And from that technology, you're going to get insights from the data that is generated in order to make decisions. And the insights, the areas that all those 3 actions, those 3 components are going to impact the people, the process, the elements, and the technology.
How did you come up with this? And why do you think it's necessary for leaders to look at the mixed method and these 3 components?
Well, I came up with it. It was a presentation that I did last year when I was at the Resman conference. It was a software conference that I went to last year, was invited to give a presentation there. So it all was devised on doing the 6 steps you can take to minimize the growing pains of scaling a business. Because that's what I've been doing over the past, 12, 15, whatever years, putting in processes, new systems, new processes, procedures in order to grow companies, help companies to grow. Each time I've been successful at that. And the biggest thing that I came out with is that it was always the biggest thing that helped people to scale is the communication, understanding where we're going, who we are, what we're going to do, how we're going to get there. And first and clear, and one of the most important things, how this is going to impact you as a frontline worker, as a regional, as a leadership. How is this new change going to impact you? Always having that communication, core values or whatever, all that needs to be constantly communicated. And when I found out that was the biggest effort, the connection of the culture to embrace change and help others and support others through it. That was another area right there that in that creating a winning environment that came up. and also investing in people for growth, investing in the growth and opportunities for the people there. So the biggest thing I realized then was just creating that environment for the people. I'm getting too much in the weeds here. Sorry about that.
That's
But
all right. No, this is good stuff.
yeah, the biggest effort is creating the environment for the people, because I don't care what you do after that. When I did those 6 steps, if you don't have that environment for the people, I don't care how, you're not going to have anybody to be able to analyze processes to determine whether or not you're meeting your goals or not. And you're not going to have anyone to understand the new technology that you're bringing in. So you have to have that environment that allows collaboration, innovation, open feedback, psychologically safe. People feel psychologically safe giving feedback, and just a blueprint, a strategy, a roadmap of where we're going. I found out that that was so critical, that there was so many technology that I remember us getting rid of that actually worked, but because there was no strategy or vision or roadmap of where we were going, people did not harness that technology. They did not know how to. If you didn't show them how, they didn't take it on themselves to learn. They didn't let go of their old processes to learn the new process. They didn't embrace the change. So that was one of the hardest things for me with doing implementation, new processes, bringing in technology. It's just the messaging, the campaign, where we're going, and having that blueprint going forward for the people to understand how it's going to impact them.
Why do you think that people piece in all of this work? Because it sounds like to me, and if I'm wrong, correct me. It sounds like in the mixed methodology, the work on the people piece, right? Making sure that you're creating this culture for them, a winning culture. That is that the most challenging part of for organizations to really get that and to master that piece?
Yes, that is the most challenging part. I found that most leadership now, because you touched on it a while back, a few minutes ago, when we talked about leadership. What has happened is that leaders have gotten away from messaging. They've gotten away from being motivational, inspiring, developing their teams. And that actually starts with some sort of messaging that you have to deliver to them so that they understand where they're going, how they're going to get there, and what they need to do to get there, whether it's learn new technical skills, learn new professional skills, learn new soft skills, having that roadmap for the people. So I've learned that if you don't have that, you're not going to get a lot of buy-in to new ideas and new technology that's coming in. That over the years have compounded, because leaders these days have been, how can I say, promoted, especially in technology. Leaders have been promoted due to a skill that they have. They did it well. It doesn't mean that they're a great leader. They just had the best skill on the team, so they got promoted to be over the team. But yet, nobody took the time to invest in their growth as a leader. To how do I stop what I'm doing that's best, that I love doing, to invest in others? How do I go away from coding in order to develop other coders? How do I go from connecting whatever to help others? And a lot of them don't want to do that. That's not what they really want to do. So they end up holding on to their task that they're good at and not leading. And therefore, you don't have a direction for that department. And sometimes it goes even as far as the company sometimes. And it hurts. And you'll see people revolving door going in and out, because everybody's asking, well, what is it for me if I'm not being developed or growing? I have to do it on my own, but can I move up?
That is something. And I know you said that, in technology, that's the issue, but I see it with our clients across all industries. Is
Mm-hmm.
that, this person was a great project leader, and people miss those supporting casts and probably helped that person lead the team a little bit better, but they don't make the same investment in developing them to be people leaders. They don't make that investment on helping them communicate more strategically, be more influential in their organization. And like you said, to motivate and get people to, and even identifying the skills on your team and
Right.
leveraging individual skill sets so they can do more of what they're great at and what they enjoy as we build them up. And so I do think you're right. Organizations are missing the mark year after year, and they're doing a disservice to their employees by not helping them be better people leaders, because The result is the cost of turnover.
Yes. And I had to witness that. Gosh, Jenny. I mean, even going back, it was so, how could I say it? It was so disheartening because I'm very passionate about the work that I do. So, spending time going overtime wasn't a big deal for me. It came to hurt me in the end, but I would say that when you're passionate about the work that you do, but you see people going in and out of a door because there's no messaging, there's no commitment to development and making them better. When you see that happening, you start to become kind of depressed because you're like, well, where is this going to go? Where are we going? What are we doing? Am I just spending hours and hours and days putting in new processes, putting in new procedures just for them not to be implemented because no one ever told marketing or accounting what was going on or whatnot, or what we were going to do. It was just a high level discussion. And Marcus, can you do this or whatnot? And you come up with this huge diagram of mapping and everything of what's going to happen. And it just doesn't happen because there's no messaging. The messaging is not there. And you see the people that you work with, they're going in and out the door. It becomes quite depressing. You hear the complaints, you speak up, and sometimes you get demonized for speaking up or whatnot. That's probably one of the hardest things to accept. Like, oh my gosh, I can't say nothing. And that's when you start to become fearful of your job or whatever.
Yes.
Because you become, I'm only bringing up something that's happening, and now you're questioning, what am I doing or whatever, or am I going out? And it's like, oh my gosh, and being in technology, when there's a level of understanding that has to be had for each new system or whatever device or solution that's brought in, there has to be a level of understanding. There has to be an outlook on how is this going to impact this person and where they're going. And if you can't give them that, and you're not showing them that, they become very resistant, and they start, again, gossiping, asking questions, and you don't have the answer for them. And you try to go and bring it to upper management or whatever and upper leadership. And I tell you, it starts to come back down on you. And you're like, hey, I'm just bringing this to the table.
And it's interesting because that old saying, don't shoot the messenger.
Yes.
When you are the messenger, you often get shot, right? I think a lot of people have spoken up who are people invested leaders, have spoken up, and at the expense of personal loss and jeopardy, they've ended up on the wrong side of justice in their organizations. And it's unfortunate because a lot of senior leaders are far removed of what's happening with middle management and the frontline workers, and they don't want to hear bad news because they take it personally, right? They see it as a personal failing, instead of, oh, wait a minute, I need to find out what's actually happening. Let me slow down and bring people together, and let's talk this through. Maybe I am not sharing enough with them along the way. Instead, oh, there go Marcus creating trouble. Ain't nobody else saying anything because oftentimes you got 12 people in the choir and one soloist. And you're right. And that person is the one that's everybody's coming to. And so I mean, from your personality and what I know about you personally, I know you are the go-to person. People find you a great listener. You are empathetic. You have a high level of emotional intelligence. I think that goes to having a wife and two daughters, right? Growing up in a woman dominated home, right? From a standpoint of numbers. So you bring this sensibility into the workplace, but you really genuinely care about people and how they feel. And there are not a lot of leaders like you in organizations. So because they're not, and I know you've put yourself out many times at personal risk, right? You've taken personal risk to speak up. For leaders like you, how can you inspire them to continue to toe the line of people first leadership while giving them these skills that you talked about in the mixed method?
Yeah, Jeannine, and I've wrestled with this. I'm gonna be honest, I've wrestled with a lot over the last years, even since coming up with the mixed method, and it all depends on the environment. I go back to creating that winning environment, but it all depends, how do you manage this in that environment? Because if it's a healthy environment and it's open, it's psychologically safe, people feel psychologically safe, and you can come in and talk about it. and they focus on the actual issue and not necessarily the person that's bringing it to them or whatnot. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if they talk about it and know that it's out there, and we say, well, how can we resolve it? That's healthy. That is so healthy, and it's rewarding because you feel like you're doing something to make things better. Now, I realize this, that I see in a toxic environment. I said this earlier. You have to, if you're passionate about what you're doing, you might have to get out of that environment because your heart is in it. Your heart is in your work. Your heart is in what you're doing. And regardless of what you're doing, things may not change. Matter of fact, they may blame you for everything that's happening or whatnot. Not that it's saying that it happened, but that could happen. I've seen it in certain situations.
Yeah, me
But
too.
but how do you manage that? You have to pull back. You in certain ways you have to pull back and go with, you have to caution. You have to go in with caution. You have to, I would say this, bring things up, pull people aside, because when you're in a toxic environment, people are really sensitive. So you have to have a lot of one-on-one conversations in safe places where it's just you and them. Don't email, don't whatever, call, have a face-to-face, whatever you can, anytime you bring matters up. You want to let them know that I'm approaching you with this first because I wanted to give it to you like this. Do not bring it up in front of people because they get defensive. Even if you think the room is safe, bring it up, approach one-on-one, even if it's a leader and you're telling them what's happening, have a one-on-one conversation. If it's a safe environment where everybody is open, then yeah, you can actually open up and feel honest, but don't put it in a sense of what's happening. Share how it makes you feel. You know, put yourself at the one that's at risk of how it's impacting you and your job and your team or whatnot. And don't make anyone wrong about it. Just saying this is a issue that we have. How do we get through this? You know, it's all about that open communication and collaboration that you have. And they have to set up an environment for that. If you have a lot of siloed departments where people don't talk, you're going to have to do a little extra communication. You're going to have to go one-on-one. You're going to have to go to the office. You're going to have to make calls. It's a lot of work. It can be done, but if you're passionate about the job, you have to say just how, if you love the company, love what you do, you're passionate about it, it's going to be a lot of work, but it can be done, but it's going to be very, very hard. And it's going to take a lot of your time. It's going to be slow too.
I'm glad you ended with it's going to be slow. I think there's also like some rules of engagements teams need to do on the front end of planning. We project plan, right? We plan for the project, but we don't
Mm-hmm.
plan for how we're going to interact. And so I
Right.
think it's really important that teams start with, okay, this is the project. This is our vision for it. These are our objectives. And then they also need a line that says, how are we going to engage? What
Mm-hmm.
are those psychologically safe principles that we're going to make sure that we are interacting with every day? We're going to gauge the temperature of the team, even if we just use a simple emoji app, right? We send out
Mm-hmm.
a link. It has 5 or 6 emojis from smile to sad face, and we just check the temperature about how people are doing first personally. Right? How are
Mm-hmm.
you today? Is this a good day? Because then you might find out I showed up, but I ain't really here because this is happening at home. I got a kid that's being bullied in school.
Yes.
I have a
Yes.
parent that we just found out was sick. We had a car accident last night, right? Because people don't come into work and announce these life incidents that happen to them. They just try to press through it. But then it impacts how they show up and no one knows what's going on. But what ends up happening is there's gossip like, oh, Marcus he ain't doing what he's supposed to do, or he's holding
Right.
us back, or he's slowing us down, but nobody checked in. It's like, hey, Marcus, everything okay? Are you
Right.
cool? Right? We
Right.
don't do that. And so I think there's a component of those things that are missing from the project planning,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what the engagement is, right?
Right.
We could just be, reviewing financial statements. We could be doing month end close and accounting. It doesn't have to be an SAP implementation. It doesn't have to be a
Right.
data migration project. It doesn't have to be that large for us to do continuous check in with our people, finding ways to engage and challenging those. Right.
Right.
Looking at someone saying, did you really say what you wanted to say? Are you beating around the bush because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings?
Mm-hmm.
We start one of our, a couple of boards I sit on. One of the things that we do, because what we're working on is personal, like you said, right? Like the work,
Right.
we're passionate about it. Like you said, a lot of internal corporate leaders are passionate about what they do, and it gets a little dicey, right? It's
Yeah.
sometimes it's political, but one of
Yes.
the things that we do is like we suspend our right to be offended. We're going to suspend our right to be offended. And we're going to get through the challenges of the work and communication. We're going to be direct, open, and honest. But we're
Mm-hmm.
also going to be kind and
Mm-hmm.
thoughtful with our
Mm-hmm.
words. We're going to be great listeners, right? We're going to let people speak without interruption, even
Mm-hmm.
with questions. We do this
Mm-hmm.
exercise, Marcus, in some of our high performing teams, where
Right.
we have people talk for 2 consecutive minutes, and the person listening, so it's a one-on-one exercise, and the person listening cannot ask a question, cannot interrupt, cannot ask for clarification. They have to listen for 2 minutes, and then
Right.
we debrief on that experience. People be like, I was dying inside. I had a question. And
Right. Right.
I
Right.
wanted to clarify. They can't even agree. They can't even say, oh my gosh, I feel the same way. They can't say anything.
This has been something I would say that the whole mixed method, this whole thing was something that I had to sit back, because when I decided to go out on my own, and I was up in Atlanta actually renovating the house, and gosh, I mean, it was just, I had to sit back and just go back. I mean, my previous position, this wasn't something that was just there. I mean, I had to go back years and years. I've seen this before. I had to get to a point where I said, wait a minute, I've seen this before. I've seen this before. So I started to put together, okay, the people that the companies that embrace change, adopted, where there was good leadership, what did they do? How did they do it? You know, what was so good about the environment? That's the key. It's the environment. It's those three things you have to do for an environment. You have to communicate, connect, and make a commitment to the people. And just going through that, I realized how much not only impact it has at work, but how much of an impact it has on your life outside of work. Because if it's toxic and whatever, you feel that you have to continue to work outside just so you don't get that, what can I say, scarlet letter on your shirt at work or whatever. You don't do anything wrong. You can't, they have this thing in technology called fail fast. Not in a toxic environment. You can't fail fast. You can't fail at all. That's why nobody tries anything. They become resistant to change because it's safer to stay where you are rather than to put yourself out there to try and be innovative or whatnot. People come down on you for changing or whatnot. Don't change this process for me. This is going to change everything. I don't care what you guys do over there, as long as you don't mess with what I'm doing over here. When you get into, I've seen that environment a couple of times throughout my career, and I have to go and say, well, what is the problem there? And it's always the messaging. It's always the lack of strategy, a lack of vision of where we're going. And it's also a lack of commitment to investing in the people to develop their skills continuously so that they can adapt to the change that's coming down the road, or continuously adapt and learn new skills. And they tend not to analyze processes constantly. Like we always talk about continuous improvement. They're not. They go with what's best for them. And what they do is whatever's best for them, whatever's best for their lifestyle and their routine, that's what they stay with. And they will alliance with others, and they will stop change from happening. And then you get that whole silo resilient. And I'm not talking about a good resilient. I'm talking about people where they push back on change resilience. So it's bothersome because you end up doing outdated processes that take a long time, that actually impact your day outside of work because it takes a long time, and they won't leverage technology to ramp up and make things faster and more efficient. The people in there become stagnant. The business becomes stagnant in a sense and not stay competitive. And eventually, if you stay in there too long in that environment, it's going to have an impact not only on you physically, emotionally, but it's going to have an impact on you, your family and stuff. I would say it did with me. It really did. Not spending enough time with family, daughter, and things of that nature, daughters or whatever. When I left, and I was like, wow, my daughter's in college now. I totally forgot. One is about to graduate, and you missed a lot of time with them. And again, that's what that toxic, that not being willing to change, adapt, it can have an impact not only on the company, but impact on you outside of work, especially if you're passionate about what you do in a job.
Marcus, that was so great. I think you ended that perfectly for us because it's that status quo leadership that creates all of these things that eventually in the workplace, right? This chaotic work environment where there's no vision,
Right,
no people aren't grabbing hold of the vision, technology is not being leveraged, and it's impacting how we live our lives
right.
outside of the work environment. Or maybe it's creeping in, right? We got work creep into our lives. So I
Right.
just want to thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
has been so good. I think you have given us, with the mixed method, the answers we need to better manage our teams and our work environment. So if you are looking to better engage your people, create better processes, and leverage technology, please connect with Marcus. He is the solution that you need with the mixed method. Marcus, please tell our listeners where they can connect with you, how they can find you before we end our show today.
Absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, of course. You can also find me at marcuskwilson.com. That's my website, as well as pivotalimpactllc.com. It's my company's website. It'll crumble in a sense. But and again, LinkedIn, Marcus K. Wilson. You can find me there. I'm also just started a TikTok thing there too, but I'm just getting that ramped up now. So yeah.
All right. Well, y'all, thank you so much for joining us today. Marcus, thank you for being our guest. Thank you for joining the UnToxic Boss. Again, I am Jeannine K. Brown, your host, and I will be back again with you next week. We want to introduce you a resource that we know that will impact your life and your career. It's a book, Unstuck and Unstoppable. It is the ultimate guide to overcoming obstacles and achieving your goals. With practical tips and inspiring stories, the book will help you leverage your value, increase your visibility, and gain recognition to accelerate your career. Take action towards getting the career that you deserve. This book was named Best Career Book of 2022. Get your copy anywhere you buy books, either on Amazon or at our website at unstuckandunstoppablebook.com. Thank you for joining the UnToxic Boss podcast today. We are here and on a mission to help people stop being a jerk at work. We'll see you here again next week.